Yeah, I was coming to Maxine and then Martin after Maxine.
Yeah, and what I want to say, and I will come on and show my face the next time. Ryan, you're absolutely on point. You're absolutely on point. What I will say, and I do feel quite passionately about it, is when we say they, they're doing this, we take power away from ourselves. And I refuse personally to do the they. Whenever we say they are doing this, they are doing that, they say this, they say that, we automatically take energy, atomic energy, away from ourselves. And that was what I was thinking, because what you're saying is absolutely correct. And I've also noticed this whole Black Lives Matter. You see, when were tearing down those statues in Bristol, look at who were tearing them down. It was not Black people. So this momentum is going to be carried by those who have a dominance. It's not a spiritual dominance, it's whatever it is. So I just feel that sometimes we need to step back a little bit and regain our own power, our own energy, and not feed into this, whatever that other energy is. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry, I just needed
Thank
to
you for
say
that,
that.
Maxine. Okay. So I'm going to come to Martin next.
Yes, Marvin. Yeah, it's cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
Marvin. My bad, Marvin.
Yeah. I wish I could sing like Marvin Gaye though, but I like all the points that you were saying, Raya. Really cool. And Maxine as well. Thank you for adding on with that. Giving power away is the whole reason why we're in this situation. I think the other day I figured out what COVID was. I didn't think I was going to express this out to people, but anyway, I realized COVID has that. Ryan is into metaphysics and metaphors and all that as well. You might relate to this a bit. And I was looking at the word COVID, and I was looking at what's happening. And I work on identity all the time. And when you're COVID seems a covering of an identity. COVID covering identity. I was like, that's quite strange. To me, it made sense. You know, it might seem far-fetched. But what I connected by it is that I meant, like, we keep saying, Maxine says, we need to stop saying they. I agree totally. But when we say, who is this Illuminati? Who are these people who we keep giving prominence to and giving them a platform? They, once again, that word is a funny thing. But when you look at Masonics and stuff, people who write these books and produce stuff, people of status, power that they claim through the academia and the structures that are in place. They, once again, I have to use that word in that context. Sorry, Maxine. When you look at what they've put out, for example, Hegelian dialect, you will understand and you can actually see that this is a played out plan. This one right here is actually seemed like they had the cards ready. The media had the same cards printed out towards the whole world. And when you understand how money works, you can see that they had this planned out fully through the UN, and every country was ready. And there's compensation seems to be coming to all these hospitals, compensation coming to the countries as well from a federal state positioning. You can see that they are all playing into it, right? So that's just basically looking into it and stuff and that, right? And when you look at that, you realize that when we say Illuminati, these people who are begging to be in this place, it's all spiritual science. It is political, as the polls, as you're saying. It's all, it covers it all. Now, for me, I'm fascinated by it because they can manipulate us to such a state. I use that because I look at that. They can manipulate us at that state. I've realized that they are trying their best to use that to take control of our spirituality. And when you see that platform that they use, money, technology, to harness our energy through these schemes, you can see how they plan it out. The reason why I say so is, I guess, you need to know where you're going, what you're coming up against sometimes. You have to know your strength. You have to know your weaknesses. So you know what threats are coming to you and you know what opportunities are going to arise. So I look at them, I study all sorts of things. I study my spirituality. But while I'm studying it, the things that I come across are what we call the Illuminati. Those are the things that are placing more hurdles in front of us achieving to be who we are meant to be. So I guess that's why I wanted to touch on the whole, from Ryan's aspect of the Hegelian dialect, which is all contradiction, living a contradiction. Once your identity is covered, you are going to live a contradiction.
Thank you for that, Marvin. We've got a few people that want to share, so I'm going to move through and keep moving on. So, quick question from yours before I move on to Victoria was for Maxine. They've asked, what word would you replace they?
Is that for me?
Yeah, they're asking, what word would you replace they with? Because they agree with you in terms of giving away your power. Do you use a particular word that you have instead?
I say I personally don't. I haven't got a they in my mindset. So I use this is what I'm going to do. I talk about the books that I read, the people that I am accustomed to, my family. Of course, we have to live in this space, but we don't have to allow it to consume us. Sorry. So,
that's okay.
So when we say things like, what words should we use? We're actually saying, what westernized words should we use?
I think they meant in regards to if, some people believe, as Marvin just said, that potentially agents, powers that be. I guess it depends on whether you have that belief that those are the people that are behind certain movements. I think that person was actually asking for what would you describe those people to be. But then I think from how you've opened up, I'm not sure you might even agree with that mindset. So
I don't agree with that mindset.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
I just don't. They're not in. They're just not in my consciousness in that way that I have to be countering. It feels as though we're countering something. We're constantly having to prove against this other. Mm-hmm. And then they're othering us.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm going to go to Victoria because I know she's been waiting a minute now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Victoria, originally from Zimbabwe, but I live in Manchester. I'm going to try and be coherent, but there are a few points that I want to touch on. I'll start with Black Lives Matter. I've been drained for the past month or so with everything that's been going on. But I feel like the intentions of BLM are pure for those people, you know, fighting for injustice and the treatment against Black people throughout history till today. Even the video with George Floyd, I felt like that was very intentional. They wanted us to see that. And the message behind it was quite sinister in a way to reinforce the fact that basically Black lives don't matter. The opposite of what we're protesting against. And it's quite sad because at the same time you've got a lot of energies floating about and people with pure intentions, but at the same time I actually feel like, so I'm going to use they, like they are laughing at us. It is a power struggle, it is a control situation. At the same time I feel like some people are trying to wake up, but they're still kind of playing along to the tricks that are being planned out. In terms of us as Black people, well, most of us, but myself personally from an African heritage, it wasn't something new to me because obviously I've seen the videos before of Americans getting killed and getting shot, but it was the shock of they actually wanted us to watch and just kind of react in the way that we did. I know that, well, I feel like it was all planned anyway, and we fell for it. They wanted people out there in the street protesting, doing that kind of thing, but people are just confused in not really knowing what to do and how to move forward. Obviously, I think a few groups and a lot of people have been talking and making discussions, but it's deeper than what it is. It actually is, because I feel like in a lot of like in society, these people they've played it out. Like they've got their traps everywhere. It's like we're in a loop. So it's going to take a lot of the mind power, the spiritual awareness, and the emotional intelligence for us to actually rise above it, and for us to actually unite as a collective people to put our intentions forward of how we can move forward as the human race. We were talking about division before. That's definitely, it's always been that way. It's you, it's them, us. We've all been kind of like boxed away and marginalized, and that's how it is. So we need to kind of find a way where we can connect, because it's all about disconnecting right now, disconnecting people from each other. I was thinking about this 2 meter rule, staying 6 feet away from people. Usually as humans, we can feel each other's auras within that distance. So the further you're away from someone, you're not going to be able to connect or feel their energy. Just things like that. So for me, it just feels like you're fighting against a force that knows you better than you might know yourself. And I don't know, it's difficult. And like I had a discussion with Ryan before the whole George Floyd thing happened. I was sleeping, and out of nowhere, I still don't know what it is or what to call it, but I just started to suffocate. I couldn't breathe. Literally, my breath was just being taken away from me. And in my head, I was just thinking, oh, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I couldn't do anything. My tongue went numb. It was scary. It was actually a scary experience for me. Eventually managed to get out of it. But I remember going to see my brother and I was telling him like, I can't breathe, like I'm dying. So the other day I was just kind of thinking to myself, talking to myself, and I was kind of like, whoa. Like I had this discussion to Ryan like in April, and then the other day I was just thinking, wait, these are the similar words that George was saying before he died. So it just kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like the situation is just very much deeper than what it is. I just feel like a lot of people are suffocating out there in society, and we need to help each other. Whether it's spiritually, whether it's coming together physically, having these kind of meetings, talking about how to move forward in society as well, and just obviously supporting each other. Because I feel like the reality is a lot of this madness is going on, and COVID is just another attack on people. It's an emotional attack, a spiritual attack. And I feel like as humans, we just need to learn how to defend ourselves and protect ourselves, especially from disease, these kind of diseases. I know in like, I've got family in Africa, COVID isn't really, they're not as scared, or they didn't really experience the same type of fear that we're going through in the West. Those people are more worried about feeding their families, poverty. That's the virus they're fighting, they've been fighting it. And also like self-hate, that's another virus that they've been fighting from South Africa and Zimbabwe. Just in general, I feel like a lot of work needs to be done mentally. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that matter.
Thank you for sharing that, Victoria. So I'm going to go to J Rig, and then I'll go to Tess.
Hi everybody, my name's Joy, I'm from Birmingham. So much of what people have said today has really resonated with a lot of the beliefs I've had for a long time about the inequality between us, the divide and conquer that's been created to distract us all from our power. You know, when we've been divide and conquer, we aren't in our power to be able to do a lot. A lot of what I think Ryan and Marvin were saying about the words that have been used deliberately to create the situation, it resonates so much with me, and I've been saying it for a long time. You know, even I feel like, why do we have to have like a Black health centre or a Yemeni health centre? Why can't it be a health centre that specialises in Yemeni translators or such like that? But the fact that they keep on saying black this, white music, white music, it's a constant reminder about segregation. It's sort of similarly with Black History Month. Black History Month upsets me because to me there shouldn't be a Black history for 1 month of the year. It's our history, it's world history. It should be taught 12 months of the year alongside the history, that the white history that they give us, which is basically, I don't know whose truth it is. It's the people who's been in power. So one of the things I basically wanted to do was to ask you guys 2 questions that are basically related about what do you think that white people need to know, to be educated about, to bring more equality? What is it that white people don't realize and we need to know that would help bring equality to everybody? And what is it that we could do? So what do we need to know and understand more? And what is it that I know like Marvin said that everybody's different. So there's obviously going to be loads of different ideas, but I'm really interested to know what could white people do to make things more equal? Because racism is everybody's issue. It's not just a black issue. Everybody has to be part of the solution, especially when it's like, if the power is seen to be held by white people need to be more conscious and aware about how we could be thinking, what would we be doing to bring more resolution and more equality. Because the whole thing about white privilege, I think, is a difficult one, because I think it's an unfortunate term, because most people don't realize that they're privileged. Like, even like the poorest people in England don't think that they're privileged, but compared to some of the people that are starving in the world, they're privileged. Even like posh people or rich people, they don't always consider themselves privileged because that's all they know, and they don't understand that they are privileged. So I think that a better term might have been, or a term that's more accessible for people to understand, is an invisible advantage. Because, you know, white privilege basically means an invisible advantage. So when you say to people white privilege, they go, I'm not privileged, I'm working class. And they don't understand that it's not about a monetary privilege. It's about the fact that we haven't had to deal with the invisible disadvantages of being white compared to being black. And so they don't think they see it. They don't see it. They don't understand it. And they don't appreciate it. So I'm really interested in knowing or understanding what people think that is the most important things that white people should understand better, and what we could do practically to support a more equal world and less racism. That's my questions to everybody, please. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you, Victoria. Some
Joy.
big questions there. Big questions. So I would like to go to Tess, because he's been waiting a while, and then responses to Victoria's questions.
Greetings, everybody. How is everybody tonight? Just want to big up everybody in the chat room. This is a fantastic space. I'm loving the energy and the vibration that is being created in here. And I'm just loving sharing. So, you know, I put my hand up a while ago to say, son, what I gotta say now is I'm not quite sure, but I suppose let's get it started. We'll start somewhere. Well, maybe I'll start with, and I'll see if I can connect the dots a little bit. I can't remember the last speaker, who, the lady who just spoke. What's your name again? Victoria. Okay. So I might just start by, I suppose, responding.
Sorry.
Joy. Sorry.
Joy.
Joy. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Joy. What is it that white people, I suppose, need to know? Well, I think I want to start off with really around the social construction of these terms of white and black, and how it is my belief that these are the trick terminologies in the first place. The concept of white and black as racial constructs are only about 200 to 300 years old. They are not that old. And then it's the ideologies that are therefore empowered when we utter these terms. So when we start talking about the concept of black, we don't have to go too far into the dictionary to see the subconscious program that's being played out there. You know, we know the words and we know the terms and we know what's associated with black and darkness and then evil and then Swati and all of these kind of hidden terms, which is what takes place when we utter these terms on a subconscious level. So on a subconscious level, these things start to come out. Yeah. And it's the same with the opposite of white, bright, light, godly. You see what I'm saying? So we get a polar opposite. So as, Brother Ryan was saying a little earlier, we're starting to play with the poles. So it doesn't take too long for us to kind of start unraveling how these ideologies are therefore constructed. In the 70s, the term black, and us using the term black, was a political identity. It was about politics, and the politics of it just meant non-white. And actually, all non-white people were considered to be black. Hence the reason in things like Black History Month, Asian people will be celebrating Black History Month. You know, any minority ethnic person, though I don't like that terminology either, will be utilizing that to celebrate their history also. So it speaks about that power construct and how that the power construct around whiteness, and like you said, you know, white people are not white, so that's the first thing. You know, these are shades that we're talking about, you know, and you know, when we're talking about these shades, actually we're more so linked back to continents. So I'm not black, I'm African. You know, you're not white, you're European. That's the reality, because that's the location at which therefore like your ancestors or your ethnic backgrounds are therefore found. So these are the games that I think that are being played on us as a people. The whole idea and the concept of a Black Lives Matter. And like I said to you, the reality is all non-white people would have considered themselves black. And that part of that political game was about arguing for power, or looking at the construct and saying that power in terms of Europeans they have the dominant power in the planet right about now. And we don't need to get into the history of it, of how that power has been obtained. So going back to what we were saying about the concept of they, and I'm with Maxine and what Maxine says. Like, the whole concept of they is about giving power over the powers that be. Somebody said the powers that be. Again, these are subconscious programs where we literally, in our speech, give away our power. You know, so I think that's what we need to be more so mindful of. Actually, how are we giving away our power? Why are we giving life? We are the power. I am the power. Just what I'm saying. So why am I giving life to something? Just what I'm saying, other than the power that resides within me. Yeah, it's a tapping in. We tap into that power. Somebody said we were stardust. You see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And then you start talking about those energies coming from the stars, then from source. We are that power. We're tapping into that power. So I think that's where I'm kind of at with a lot of the discussions. But just to say that, Buaisa, you know what, this some of the psychological warfare or attack that we've been bearing witness, for me, is, again, it's that opposition, but it's the opposition that we actually do require. Yeah, the opposition that we do require. So we do require that opposition because it's bringing something out of us. So for me, it's like, you know, all is in all. All is in all. Yeah. And I say that to mean that basically, so whether we're looking at something that is so-called bad or good, positive or negative, it's all within all. These are polarities. Yeah. So what we have to be, I suppose, mindful of is how we navigate around these particular polarities, because the polarity then operates just as like the pendulum, and the pendulum just swings backwards and forwards. Yeah. And whilst the pendulum is, you're swinging backwards and forwards, you're just moving to and fro and to and fro. And somebody else, they are controlling the to and the fro. But all that takes is for us to just put the ladder, climb up to the top of that pendulum and control that pendulum yourself, and control the to and the fro. And you just go where you need to go. So rather than being controlled by the they, that control is only the control that we've given them over ourselves. Yeah, and I think I'll leave that one there unless anybody's got any direct questions to me on that.
Appreciate the breakdown, the psychology, history of the construct of the term black and white. Thanks, Tess. All right, so going to Victoria and then back to Ryan.
I was just gonna say to, I think it's Joy. It's like, I look at how they, so I'm using they, I look at, say, the LGBT movement and how they pushed so hard for that to be implemented in schools. And I feel like, why couldn't they do that for racism? But then I thought it would be a conflict of interest. So I feel like a lot of young people now growing up are confused, or their thought processing has been manipulated to the point of they kind of think they have to be something that they're not. So in terms of teaching about racism, you're teaching young people about self-awareness, who they are, and accepting themselves, and also for other people to, you know, accept them for who they are. So I feel like we can only control what we can do and ourselves as human beings. So you can only learn to do your research. We live in an age of information now. They say being ignorant is a choice. So I can only say, maybe for the younger generation, if you've got children, talk to them about these things like racism, and just try to instill certain principles in them, just about how to be a human being and how to treat people with like love and kindness, just the simple things. And I feel like that would go a long way. That would actually change the perceptions and maybe the white lies, shall I say. Yeah, so I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, okay, so just listening, and I think, yeah, funnily enough, let's go back to the they word, because it does get a bit, you know, as soon as that idea is in our head, as Maxine reminded us, it does kind of stop us in our tracks when we're trying to explain or communicate, when we're trying to omit, you know, certain words. And I'm sure many people in here, like me, gone through so many phases and spells, ironically, of omitting certain words out of the language deliberately, transforming certain words, manipulating certain words to best fit our purpose and our vibration, because we know words is power. However, and there's been a few spaces that, and there's probably a few people in here that have heard me say a few times, when I go into certain spaces to share or do workshops or programs, the word they, I always take about 5 minutes to emphasize on what I mean by they. Yeah. And the reason they is a good word to kind of dissect, because we have to remember that whoever they are to each person is different to each person. So when you're talking to somebody, and we're only talking about those who we may deem responsible. So Maxine raises a good point about, we need to own the responsibility ourselves and own that power. But for the sake of communication, we know that we're in a world where, like Romani said, we don't want to lose connection to those, because we're going off on our paths. Like, we've got people in the field, and we need to be able to communicate clearly to them at a level which they can resonate. So there's many words in my vocab in the locker that I've buried and dashed away a long time. But when it comes into a space of sharing and resonating with people, we have to really try and make it relative. So I tend to say, whoever they are to you, Because to some people, it's the government. To some people, it's Illuminati. To some people, it's Anunnaki. To some people, it's the Draconians. To some people, it's different star systems. So I say, whoever they are to you, this is how we take back power. But we have to discuss what they are doing or the role they are playing in your life in order to start remedying the problem. And the problem ultimately, like Maxine said, is, we're giving, and Tez emphasized, we're giving away power. We're even giving them life. Whatever we pay mind to, we pay life to. Therefore, the distraction is the extraction. They create so much distraction because we pay mind, we grow that, and we deplete this because life force is going out of us and leaving us rather than being channeled to our vision and intention. Another big part of the situation here. And why is it so important in this time? Someone just mentioned the solar eclipse. There was a solar eclipse just the other day. We're getting hit with these solar flares that have been occurring. We're being hit right now with the summer solstice in June in 2020 vision year, which is actually the 2012 year, according to the Sidra, the Ethiopian calendar. So this is the big portal opening, the big gateway that has been spoken about from time immemorial. So now there's so many portals open, as we was talking about last week in the manifestation dialogue. All these portals opening externally and internally. So much energy passing through, so much light. And Victoria was so spot on with the aura thing, because that is part of the social distancing, the breaking down our communications. So the other way we communicate and speak to each other is through the aura, the energetic field, it's all energetics. But as this is going on, we're getting showered with powers, with lightness, with the universal consciousness that is initiating transformation and change. So if we're locking ourselves down, or we're in fear, or we're in panic, or we're making a lot of noise demonstrating, I'm not saying that's wrong, it's right for whoever it serves, because maybe that's transitional for somebody who hasn't got off their backside or who hasn't paid attention or even cared. There's transformations occurring, but what's necessary is that we know where we are and what role we play in this. While everyone's making noise, who's listening? Maybe it's not your role. Some of us have been rallying for the last 2 decades. So now this has come around like me, and I'm like, I need to hold back. This isn't my rally now. I need to hold space. If everyone's making noise and talking, who's listening? You know what I mean? So everybody is right in what they are doing if they know what they are doing. And these are what these conversations are about, just restoring power, knowing your purpose and role, and then you have the support of everybody that's on the same wavelength, because everybody will play a different position and a different role, but everybody needs everybody's support and trust that, go for it, I got your back, I'm covering the gates, sort of thing. I'm in the mill, I'm taking care of the food, I'm in the kitchen, everyone's in a different position. But just a word to the day, and also not to forget what I had to teach myself is, in relation to the vocab, sometimes we give the vocab too much power. I started getting slapped up in my meditations when I'm dealing with all of this too conscious and it's like the symbols. Sometimes even a word like they, because we've decided we are giving away power, and so it is. So what I do is say, you give me my Adidas top, because now them 3 stripes are a symbol of the triangulation of humanity, of divine, Sarah Set Haru, if you may. Father, son, and woman. Do you know what I mean? We can make it what we want because we are the power. So we do have to bounce through the polarities, but ultimately, if we know our power, we can use anything, anytime, and put our spin on that. And we've just turned it around, just like they did with the swastika. They put the spin on it. Powerful symbols like they did with the eye and the pyramid, they put their spin on it because they come into the knowledge of the power of the sciences, of their divinity. And that's what we need to reclaim. Just to answer, or just to speak to Joy's powerful contribution. What can we do? So much. or what the white people need to know. When I speak to real white people who are really concerned with what we can do, the same thing black people need to do is the same thing white people need to do. One of the basics is demand the truth. Everything starts with truth. Yeah, so there's so much truth being uncovered, especially where the black role is being concerned about humanity. Like Victoria said, perceptions are everything. So if we change the truths, what are being told in the classroom and being channeled through the channels, yeah, then this changes the perceptions. Don't forget, when it comes to slavery, yeah, they had to come back and convince the white people, the white masses, that, oh, don't worry, these black people that were kidnapping and bringing here and treating the slaves, they were cannibals, they were witches, they were eating each other and putting themselves in cauldrons. They had to play that narrative non-stop and portray black people as monsters. They want to eat your children. Because white people are not bad or horrible or evil by heart. They had to convince white people that they're dealing with beasts, yeah, and the uncivilized and the primitive who need taming. That's how they even pulled that one over on the mass of white people. Do you see what I'm saying? And that led to perceptions, even to today, with the media coverage and the kind of spins and on the blackness and whatnot. They have to reinforce it because white people are waking up like, yo, what you want about? I've just been to school with these people and like, these are some of the best people. They're just people. They can be bad or just like anything. So we have to demand truth. We have to let the black story be told from the black perspective, yeah, by black people in the white spaces or in the white and black spaces. We have to make sure we are policing the media and all these authorities as much as we police each other with the fact checks and hold them to it by little things like this and making it go viral by let's fact check online in the cyber world amongst us and then put it out there. We have to demand truth. And once the truth is told, perceptions change and appreciations grow. Do you see what I'm saying? And now this way, because once you lie to black people and about black people or anybody else, once you hide their light or dim their light, everybody's in the dark. Everybody's in the dark. So it doesn't benefit white people with all these privileges because ultimately they are all slaves too, the majority. But they just think they've got a seat at master's table or they're in the White House. They're the house slave. Do you see what I'm saying? But because of the way the game's been played, that's a privilege, and they think they're in the good house. You can never free a slave or expect him to free himself if he doesn't realize that he's in prison. So this is a very meticulous game, and like they say, the truth will set you free. So we demand truth at every level. You see what I'm saying? And one more point, just to hop on the back of Marvin and Tess, because we love this word association and breaking it down. And what else can we do? I'll tell you what I done with the whole race game. I took myself out the race. That was my power. Because even by definition of the word, see, this is the marvel of the ambiguous English language. Yeah, these are the sciences and the occults and the backwards and the spinning. Yeah. What is a race by definition? Well, a race by definition is a contest. It's a competition. It's a desire to win or be first or compete against a person in another lane. Do you see what I'm saying? And they've made a whole global spectacle of that. Now, what's the other definition of race? It's categorizing and dividing people into characteristics based on genetics or genotype or phenotype. So when you've got these two programs running in your mind of race that is already pre-wired to go against each other in contest and competition by division, yeah? And like Tess was giving you the history of the black and white, beautiful. Well, even race, it goes back to the 16th and 15th century, no further, the word race, yeah? And it goes to the French, to the Italian, and it ultimately, etymologically, has an unfound history, the unsure roots of where it comes from. But it came into the game, yeah, once this whole having to convince the world, yeah, that these people who we are kidnapping, yeah, and enslaving are of a different creed or a different status to us. race came in, the contest game came in, and so did the definition. So we are all, by owning these terms and subscribing to this narrative of the race game, yeah, we're all in this contest subliminally or subconsciously. So once we awaken to these things and these games, what I said is, yo, I'm taking myself out the race. I'm in no competition with nobody here. I know myself. I need no competition. I'm only striving for my own growth. I'm only judged by my consciousness. I'm in no competition with nobody here. Do you see what I'm saying? And that raises you above color once again. And now I can only see unity. You know, there's other dynamics to the method, but do you know what I mean? Looking at the words, looking at the subconscious, looking at the spelling of the language, how we're using it, and just taking ourselves out the poles, just centralizing ourselves instead of swinging on that pendulum by the hidden hand. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, that's that for that. I don't know if anybody's got their hand up or questions.
Yeah. I love it. It sounds, just listening to what everyone says, and that tough question dropped earlier, and I would like to start there. And I say, well, first of all, I'll go back to this. I'll go back to a lot of people at the moment are raising the arguments. It's about time to raise the frequency, yeah? Instead of raising your voice, raise the frequency, raise your awareness of what's happening around you, how you feel, recognize what's really going on. Is it the news? Where's this coming from? Just take a minute, you know? That helps to just understand. There's loads of concepts and big words that are out here. And I guess it can be confusing to kind of figure out, because this is a broad concept to understand. It starts from the Illuminati all the way down to your health. And that's like politics is in there, and you've got children, you've got family, you got a whole broad. So to break it down is to go back to understand yourself first. I had a chat with a white friend. I thought he was a friend at the time, but anyway, I posted something about white men's behavior. And I did it that way because I was being academic, and he tried to come on and say, how dare you mention white men? How am I going to tell this to my son? And he didn't realize that I actually felt for him, but he wanted to raise the argument. I just dropped that. But what I would have wanted to say to him is, if those white men misrepresent you, what are you going to do? You can't keep standing behind other people and say, they did this, they did that, and you're white as well. It's like me. He tried to come back to me and said, well, black people eat chicken. And I just laughed and I said, yeah, they do. Unfortunately, I don't, you know, but my brothers do. Fair enough. You can't get at me on an emotional that way. But he got emotional and tried to bring it down to an emotional. That's when I realized it's like, there's a lot of misunderstanding. We all need love. I wrote a poem recently, which was played on BBC. We all need love. And if you see someone perpetrating, that person needs love. A lack of expression. They've been taught that. So if you've got children and you're trying to teach them, you teach them your values. You teach them how you respect other people, how you express yourself. That's how they would learn the world. I guess it all starts at home. And I always say, who are you? Before you join any crowd, you need to make sure you know who you are. A lion does not go out and hunt until it knows its strength. Otherwise, it ain't gonna survive. So it's about knowing yourself, building your family. Yes, I tell my son every time, there are people that might like you, won't like you. That's them. You need to make a choice for yourself to decide, is this a negative or a positive situation? Where do I take this? That's the only way I feel is the first place to start. Looking at group dynamics, I won't count myself as part of a group unless I can contribute to it. I think that's where I start and go, who are you? What is your message? What do you want from the world. And you'll get loads of different perspectives. It might seem crazy to people and say, well, that's a broad thing. But that is the only first place I would start and say, how do we move forward? How do I teach my kids? How can I talk to my friends? I feel you have to start by knowing yourself, express your culture, express who you are. Your culture doesn't mean color. Your culture could be the interests you have, the things that occupy your time, the things you enjoy doing. That's a culture that your children, you can start teaching them from them perspectives, moving onwards. You start to see, they will start to understand you more. They will adopt some of those things. Those are the things that nurture your well-being. This is about well-being, enriching our well-being, being the best of who we are. Now, we could say, how's that going to solve the widest? Well, it definitely will. If you start with yourself, you immediately, all these loud noises, they become smaller. You see what's really going on. That's why I go back to raise the frequency. You start to analyze and go, but all I said was this, and yet you want to put me in this situation. That's not where I am. And it all plays out. It becomes, all right, sorry, Maxine, but for me, they works for me they are antagonistic with the system towards me. They don't affect me, but they affect the system. So I use they in the sense of, are you aware of these things within the system? They are going to always try and get power over you. Don't think they won't. That's what they're there for. But are you aware of yourself and how you can maneuver? So that's how I look at it. And I try to use that in creative ways, obviously. Today's a bit of tough talk, but I like to use creative ways of looking at these aspects and going, oh, well, how can I express myself better instead of posting a rant in a 112 character space? There's more ways, man.
Thank you for that, Marvin. And coming next to Victoria.
I just wanted to say, in terms of making changes, it all starts with you. I know we've all mentioned like self, truth, and things like that. So I feel like that is the root. That is why people need to start to look within themselves to sort out all the issues that they have going on, because it does affect you from childhood to adulthood, to your development, and to how you treat others. So I feel like in this time, or every day, people should just really focus on becoming a better person. What can you do for you? What can you do for your family? What can you do for the people outside of yourself? And also, sometimes you are presented with opportunities to make a difference, and whatever is in your power, and whatever your purpose is, just try and fulfill it at the best of your ability, with, to reach that full potential. At the same time, I feel like they might hand you the tools to actually destroy yourself. Hence, you need to know yourself and to think before you act and before you speak. Because I feel like there's a lot of confusion within people sometimes, and yeah, our frequency might be low, but it's just focusing on raising that frequency and doing what's best for you, and nurturing yourself, and just connecting with people and the world around you. I feel like that's what's really helped me the past few years, to be honest, like to become the person I am today, and to know who I am, and where I'm at and where I want to be, present in the now. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to have Ankara Ray just say a few words, and then, yeah, one thing, and then we're going to conclude for this evening.
Yeah, give thanks, family. Literally jumped on here. I've heard a few words, what people have said, and it's been amazing just to catch what I've been able to catch on to, and just to kind of share perspectives, share angles. I'm very, very sensitive to energy. So from my feelings with the protests and things like that, I've always had my own kind of personal perspective on why I wouldn't do certain things. But within me, I noticed the days before the specific protest I'm talking about is the Birmingham one. I felt such a dense energy that it literally really affected me on a personal level. I felt drained, I felt emotional, I felt all this, whatever's going on emotionally, and like the soup of the collective psyche around me locally. I literally felt it. And then the day after, the very, very, very day after the protest, the energy, literally, I felt the energy shift. The energy was just so, it was almost like it was clear. So the smog that whatever I'd picked up, whatever I tapped into that was around me, I literally felt that shift. And personally, what I do is trauma work. So I realised that, like Ryan said, everyone has a role, everyone has a purpose. And when you recognise that role and purpose, you just kind of rise up and you do what you want to do. You do what you have to do, what you're called to do. So the people that hold the position and they march and they hold their boards and they use their voices, I can recognise that as literally releasing trauma. Trauma can be in your system, and by moving, marching, you're literally releasing trauma with every step, with every time you raise your voice and you release the emotions that you are feeling. You're releasing trauma, and sometimes it's not even your own trauma, sometimes it's trauma that's come before you. So that's just another perspective on the marches when it comes to Black Lives Matter. One thing that I would just take away from this is, the ability to listen, that reminder of like when so much is going on, sometimes like it's so easy to just analyze and absorb. Like I said, like I literally absorbed, I didn't want to, but I ended up absorbing stuff. And sometimes it is literally just about being able to just step away and just observe, not necessarily have a specific judgment, but just be like, okay, see what's going on there, and not necessarily be influenced. So that's one thing that stuck out today. Thank you for listening. Give thanks.
Taken away today? Yeah, go for it, Marvin.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, I'll just hop in there. I'm gonna try my best to not say much, but basically, I'll always drop that gem. Express yourself. The more you don't express yourself, the more you're covering your identity. Please express yourself. Express yourself. Express yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, you can unmute yourself and just do your one line. Anyone else want to share?
My takeaway will be just take away yourself. You know, take yourself out the race. be no contest, be still and listen. And if you're gonna be moved or join any movements, plan your move. This is strategy and tactics for you. You're playing your own game here. Not game in the sense it's not serious. It's very serious, it's very real. But there's still a game playing aspect to it. So if you're gonna join a movement, cool, but know yourself before you join, plan your move and know where you're moving to and know where you're moving from. Yeah. And as much as everything is about you, work on yourself, know yourself, grow yourself, but remember that yourself is divinely connected to the collective. So as long as you're doing that work on yourself, you're affecting, you're impacting regardless. So you don't have to show that in any particular way, shape or form. You just be it. And as long as you're being it, your frequency will resonate and other people will recognize your frequency and you will have the support of the collective mass who are operating at that vibration. So take care of yourself and keep yourself, but move with yourself in the right fashion and we're all good.
Thank you. I think for me, a takeaway I'd say is that comes to mind is like knowledge knows, but wisdom applies it. So I feel like this is for me, the takeaway is apply what I know and make it wisdom, because it's been a necessary process in this particular time. So that's definitely my takeaway, as in applying the knowledge and really making that wisdom, embodying that for me, and holding that identity higher than Black, higher than we know what's going on, and really staying firm in that. Anyone else want to share before we wrap up?
I'll shout out.
Oh, yeah.
She's got one of the best voices I've heard in my life, but she wants to type. So my takeaway, Mary Moo, to everybody, my takeaway is that I will do my best to educate those around me on my heritage and culture. My history, etc., is told from mouth to mouth most times, not always in books. I'll pass on what has flown through my parents to further educate on my culture, tribe, and history. Thank you, Mary Moo.
Can I just say, just remain connected. Don't fall for the separatist agenda. And I think that's what I'd like people to, and myself, to take away.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'd also say life, for me, is kind of like a circuit board. And there's a lot of talk about ascension, about spirituality, about science. But I truly believe that people fall into other people's spiritual realm for a reason. And I just feel, I'm thankful, Ryan, and everyone here. I feel connected, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful.
Thank you. And we had one from Ray Edwards: unlearning is just as important as learning. Very true.
I'm just gonna say something that's been on my mind is letting go of your fears, because they do hold you back. Yeah, and just letting a lot of things go. Just let it go. Don't let it weigh you down. Yeah, and just love yourself, love everyone, and just move in the spirit, and yeah, move with wisdom.
Thank you. All right, guys. So I think everyone that wanted to share has, yeah. And a lot of people are resonating with that in the comments. Ryan, do you want to wrap it up?
Thanks, fam. A real powerful discussion. I've learned so much just being in the space, and I felt I've just been charged, like Maxine explained, the science in the start. feel like it's charged, and I feel like I've grew stronger in my positioning just by hearing the different perspectives. And I hope that everyone has more than a few words to take away, for real, even if it is just that space to express yourself. That's the intention. Someone asked how often we'll do this, and we're just trying to do this. Maybe once a fortnight on a full moon, and on a new moon is sufficient, I think, because those are very potent times to plant seeds and to amplify intentions. Yeah, so always welcome. Remember this, we will record this for record and reference, and we will get it to you just so you can pick up on the gems that are dropped. And yeah, powerful time. As long as you know yourself, you know who you are, you won't make the wrong move. Do you see what I'm saying? And I've learned in this time to just respect everyone's position. And I hope we can all do that, because that's the only way we can start to trust each other and come back and unite collectively and put wind in each other's sails. You know, and we could go on all night and all week with this topic. There's still some other issues, and if anyone has any particular suggestions of very current issues that are just really kind of biting them, that they're seeing being played, or historical, social, yeah, suggest them to us through the channels. Do you know what I mean? But you know, it's always great to share this space and to have this dialogue.